Welcome to another episode of A Cuppa with a Conversationalist. My name is Con. I am the conversationalist. And yes, I have my latte in tow. Today, my guest is not your typical relationship counsellor or personal development speaker. With over 3 decades of expertise in psychology, neuroscience, and metaphysics, Russell Voss, affectionately known as Russ, is a transformative force like no other. From his disciplined years in the Royal Australian Navy, earning his Bachelor of Social Work degree, and after a significant life correction at the age of 40, Russ can transform your relationship like no other. He's worked in crisis centres, healthcare facilities, and even remote regional Australia, bringing hope and healing to individuals and families wherever he goes. Russ has considerable experience around suicide intervention and prevention, and his mission extends much further. It's to change our culture of disposable relationships and lower Australia's appalling divorce rate. His mission is to help couples avoid divorce in Australia with counselling and rediscover happiness so they can be amazing role models for their kids. Welcome, Russell.
Thanks, Con. Thank you for inviting me onto the show. I really appreciate that.
Mate, absolute pleasure to have you. Now, so I don't get into trouble, Russell or Russ?
Russ is fine, mate.
Russ is fine.
Russ is fine, yeah.
I'm a little bit formal sometimes, so I might slip back into Russell.
That's fine, mate.
All good. Hey, Russ, let's obviously in your intro, there's a lot of experience in psychology, neuroscience, metaphysics. Where does that come from? Tell us a little bit about how Russell got interested or indeed involved in those spheres.
Going back just before 2000, I had a separation from a marriage. I broke up when I had 2 girls. I did my best to stay together for my girls. That unfortunately didn't work out. But at the age of 40, I found myself sitting at a T-junction of life. Now, if I turned left, I wouldn't be here today. But I turned right. And for me to go through what I went through, life just wasn't working. And I like 7 men a day kill themselves in Australia. Jeez. Because of very similar, I would say, emotions that overwhelm that I was experiencing. And when I got some help, I went through 6 months of intensive support, and it just blew my mind how much I didn't know about life. Because like I tell my clients, 97% of the population on this merry-go-round of life thinking everything's the way it is. But they're actually a victim of life. They're actually just living life and just going round on the merry-go-round.
Yeah, the old hamster wheel.
The hamster wheel, that's what I was trying to think of. But when I went through this change in my life, I realised that there's a whole different life out there. When I became self-aware and my life changed so much, the quality of my life just went up. I'm going, I have to teach other people this. So I started reading books flat out from 1987. I started reading books, but I got really into it after I applied what I read in the year 2000 at this meltdown, so to speak. So that's when I vowed I wanted to be there for other blokes in particular, but just couples, because I didn't look, leaving those girls broke my heart. And oh, I can still feel a little bit of a twitter there. But, it's just, if I didn't know who to go to, where to go, who to talk to, who I could trust, because back in 2000, it just wasn't widely publicised. And I'm thinking, well, I want to be there for other people. I want to be there for other people so they don't have to go through what I went through or what nearly happened to me. So that's when I started studying. I did some crisis counselling, and then I went into TAFE, then university, got my degree, and I always had this focus as I just want to help people, I need to get this out there, because behind everything, we can't We can't blame other people for how we're feeling. If our life's not working, we're going to make different decisions.
Yeah,
So,
true, true, true,
and
true.
so the more self-aware we are, the less problems we have in life.
Mm. Russell, you've briefly touched on your divorce,
Yeah.
which clearly still has a level of emotional impact on you, even to this day. In the introduction, you talk about a significant life correction.
Mm.
Now, I mean, I've been through a divorce, and I know lots of people have been through a divorce, and I wouldn't describe what I went through as a life correction. It was stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Now, I'm reading into this that there's significantly more.
Oh, yeah.
Mate, would you be open to sharing some of that for us?
Oh, yeah. I don't have a problem with this. What happens, Con, because I've delved into neuroscience, metaphysics, all these different fields. What happens, Con, from the age of 0 to 7, that's when we're conditioned. Okay. That's when our subconscious mind is created. That's the blueprint for the rest of our lives. Now, if we've had the best way for me to put it is if we've had an interesting life, fairly disciplined, so to speak, as it was in the 60s and 70s, well, it does damage. And if the suppressed emotions, I'll talk about suppressed emotions. Every time we have the strong emotion, every time we have this emotion, the fight or flight, strong emotion, what the body doesn't feel, it's what it doesn't experience, the body will store it. So and this is why a lot of men, they get around between 35, 40, 45, and all of a sudden they start winding down. They don't know what's happening. Their relationship falls to pieces. Their life starts falling to pieces. And what's happened is the body just can't store anymore. And that's what happened to me. I had a really interesting life. Dad did the best he could. The kids at school did the best they could. Everyone being bullied and being not the popular kid. And all this stuff came on board. And it was just affected me. I didn't know it was there because we don't question our beliefs. We can't see us
Mm.
unconscious mind, subconscious mind. So that's what happened. I got to a point where my body said enough is enough. And the overwhelm started and it just went on for days and days. And I got to the point where all I wanted to do was the pain to stop. And that's why I got into suicide intervention prevention, because I can totally relate to what people are going through. So I was going to, I had measures in place where I was going to end the pain. And I got a phone call. And the most unexpected person called me and he said, well, what's going on, Russ? And he said, well, what about your girls? I went, I forgot all about the girls because all that I was consumed in was the pain I was experiencing. So all these things were coming up to be dealt with. When I started counselling, I went to a social worker myself, and she was amazing. All I did was sit there and we just told some stories. I got some energy healing at the same time. So I was seeing 2 therapists every week, twice a week at the beginning, and then went to once a week, then once a fortnight for 6 months solid. And I just went through the process of just offloading all these suppressed emotions. And that's the suppressed emotions what's made it much deeper and more significant for me. That's what I believe from neuroscience and metaphysics.
Okay. I'm curious if we can just probe a little bit further
Yeah.
in terms of I understand what you were feeling, but from a conflict perspective within the relationship, what were motivating factors or what were issues that were within your relationship, which I guess had some impact in bringing what you experienced to a head?
Okay. That was actually my second divorce. That was my
Okay.
that was my second one, but well, I didn't have any children to the first one.
Mm.
I've actually had another couple on top of that,
Mm.
but that's another story. But we can go there if you want to. I don't mind. But the first one was just, I don't know, because the first one was quite abusive, and I had to leave that relationship. I couldn't put up with it anymore. The second relationship, there was no arguing whatsoever. There was actually no communication. And because
Okay.
it was just like chalk and cheese. Beautiful lady. There's nothing. We became the best of friends after we separated. But it was the attachment I had to my girls. You know, my girls were my heart. They were in my heart. And the fact I went to a psychologist for 3 or 4 months. I said, look, I need to fix me because I want to stay together with my girls. And we worked and said, there's nothing wrong with you, Russ. You know, you're doing everything right. You need both, you need to come together. And see, my wife wasn't in that space where she
Mm.
wanted to get some work done. There's some horrible things happen. Oh, sorry, there are some things happen to my wife in her younger years,
Mm.
but I didn't know this while I was married.
Mm.
So I stayed together, stayed together, stayed together. After 12 months of putting up with it, because it was just, there was no communication. I was walking on eggshells. There was just no happiness in the relationship. And my psychologist came through, was running a business. My psychologist came into my business and I said, oh, g'day, mate. She said, oh, g'day, Russ. I said, is there any chance I can ever talk to you tomorrow morning before you go back? She said, if you're staying together for the girls, Russ, you're staying together for the wrong reasons. And I
Reasons.
told you that 12 months ago. I didn't want to leave, Con. I was prepared to put myself through a lot of pain for my girls.
How old were your girls at the time?
5 and 7.
Yeah, that's a really, really tough time.
Yeah.
Look, that's a whole nother discussion.
Oh, yes.
And look, all cards on the table. I mean, one of the challenges that I had, and you probably relate to this to some extent, is that I I should have left my marriage a lot earlier than I did,
Mm.
but I stayed because the kids were younger.
Yeah.
But my reasoning was I feared that if they stayed with her, that she would basically poison them against me, and I wouldn't see the kids. I wouldn't know. They would know who their father was really, other
Yeah.
than the stories that they had heard. So
Yeah.
I can absolutely relate to that, and I can see why some people do that. And I'm talking both men and women here.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't
Absolutely.
gender specific,
Mm.
mate. Let's get on to the old divorce rate here. I read recently that statistically 30% of marriages will end in divorce, and for second timers it's 60%,
Ah.
which is staggering.
Yeah.
Why would you, and given you've multiple marriages, why do you think the divorce rate would be higher for those that are entering into a second marriage?
Oh, because what happens is you don't know how you're going to react in a relationship in the beginning, right? I just want to put a message out there. If it's not right before the marriage, it's not going to be right after the marriage. I'm
Hallelujah, brother. Praise the
I'm
Lord.
standing at the altar and going, why am I doing this? I go, you'll be right, mate. When they get to know me, the arguments will stop when nah, it doesn't change. So what happens is we start developing boundaries in the first relationship, what we won't put up with. And we got to the point of being pushed to the limit. That's why we left the first relationship. This is only my opinion,
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah, yeah,
my point of view.
yeah.
In the second relationship, we have less tolerance. However, if there's enough impact, if the relationship isn't running smoothly in the second relationship, well, it's building up those suppressed emotions again, but we become less tolerant. So that's why. But actually, if you look at 21 figures, it's 63%, 63% divorce rate.
Wow,
There's
that's staggering.
over 56,000 divorces a year. And there's only 89,000 marriages. This is only marriages. This is only documented. This is not
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah. I get that. Yeah,
So you're actually
de
playing.
factos.
Sorry?
Not including de factos and things like that.
No.
It's just registered
Yeah.
marriages. Yeah.
So it's actually 6 out of 10. And if you want to put it in another way, you're playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets instead of 1. Oh, so
Jeez.
I want to, after the way I was treated by the child support system, they kept on thinking I didn't want to pay money. I said, look, I want to pay money, but let's be fair about this, like, tell me what I need to pay. I wanted to work with them, but they had this attitude, and it was like, no wonder a lot of blokes are pushed over the edge because of the way they treat,
Yeah.
well, the way they treated me. So I need to be there for guys going through this rubbish, connecting with child support, being told, losing their power altogether. It's a 50-50 relationship, but when you enter the system, you tend to lose a lot more than
Yeah.
you tend to lose a lot more. And it's about being told what to do and all these ridiculous little rules and things that never happened before. And it's just the not knowing. So to answer your question, Con, I just think we get less tolerant. And that's it, because I ended up with another relationship which is abusive again. And the third relationship was, we made the agreement on, I knew this lady for quite some time, but never in a dating form. And on the first meeting, we had a coffee. I said, look, we're getting on really well here, but I want to make one thing very clear. I don't want children. I've got 2 beautiful girls. I don't want any children. Oh, no, that's fine. 2 months after I was married, I want children. I want children. I want children. So, I mean, this, it went on for 2 or 3 years. And I said, look, enough is enough. It created so much drama. So then I ended that one. So then I went to another relationship, into another one, and I married her for cultural reasons because this lady come from a different country. And for me to go and live in a different country, I had to abide by their culture. It was etiquette, social expectations. And I didn't want to do what I did. I'm going, it'll be right because, I've heard this, but 7 months, I'm going, I got to pull the pin here. I couldn't believe it. So then I'll tell you the secret, Con. I'll tell you all your listeners the secret. I got to a point where I continued to work on myself all the way through this. I put the mirror on myself. I analyzed every relationship that broke up. And there's about 8 or 9 relationships altogether, minor ones as well that came in there. And I analyzed every one of them using the information I've been researching. When you get to a point of not needing a relationship, that's when magic happens. When you don't need anybody to fulfill you, that's when magic happens, because you're not going to drain the other person. And that's what I met my beautiful wife.
That's a really interesting comment. I worked with a gentleman by the name of Kerwin Ray for some time. Kerwin's a business strategist, a lot of psychology focused approach in terms of business. But one of the most profound things that he said is that which you need will control you.
Absolutely.
And he was referencing it in that context to money, because we know as a salesperson, we're all in sales to a certain level. If we go into a transaction where we have, I need that sale, I need that commission, there's that aura, that need that is being portrayed. Yes. And it's exactly the same in a relationship.
Absolutely.
If you need it, if you can't see any way without it, then you're going to be controlled by it.
Absolutely.
And so that's why what you're saying is, when you don't need it, that's when the magic happens.
If your life is a 12 out of 10 every day, then you're ready for a relationship. because happiness comes from within. It doesn't come from things. It doesn't come from other people, despite what the media says, because
Yeah, well,
the
yeah.
media tell us all the time that we need this, we need this. We're not a person without that. We need this person in our life. We are enough. We
One of
are
the
enough.
one
And
one of the greatest marketing strategies uh, ever developed is convincing the consumer they have a problem
yeah,
that they're not aware of or weren't aware of, to then sell them a product to resolve that problem that they don't have.
absolutely.
And the media is fantastic at that. Russ, let's you coined a phrase which I've heard before and is really just resonates so much. We talk about culture of disposable relationships.
Yeah.
What tell me about what you mean by disposable relationships, and why are we there? I mean, is it easier to get divorced today than it was 10, 20 years ago?
I don't think it's much easier, but it's much easier than it was when I was a kid.
Mm.
Because when I was a kid, you had to go to court and you had to prove these things.
Mm.
But the culture of disposable relationships is the fact that it's instant gratification. If you look at the way we go into the dating game, how much thought is put into what does a commitment mean? What does a decision, how deep is the decision of I want a relationship? What's that include? It's like, and what sort of a person are you looking for? Are you looking, if you don't develop, and we don't develop friendships, Con. It's like we know everything about the person on the first night or in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. What people don't realize is limerence, this is something that happens psychologically after about 12 months. And that's when the person becomes the real person. That's when the rose-colored glasses come off. By that time, we've got a mortgage, we've got a child on the way, we've got all this debt, and we're working together, and all of a sudden you're with somebody they didn't have those habits before. This is psychology. This is just normal psychology. And so that's what happens. The chemicals in the brain changes, and we're just all of a sudden not with the person that we were with in the beginning, because they're becoming their true self. That's why we need to understand how to love ourselves unconditionally and accept ourselves, so then we can accept that other person. Because we cannot, sorry.
So no. I'm just curious if that is what's happening in terms of the person isn't really, I won't say exposing, because it's not like they're deliberately hiding things. Well, you'd like to think not.
No.
But if it 12 months is that psychological point where these habits or these behaviors are becoming more apparent or more evident,
Yeah.
what's the solution?
Develop a friendship.
Okay.
Soon as you become intimate with somebody, it creates chemicals in the brain that hides everything.
Yeah.
So if you develop a friendship, get to know their values, get to know their goals, get to know their family, their ideas around family, what they like, what they dislike, that you can talk about everything without the intimacy. You can share your personal life. You can develop this is what my wife and I did, and the long distance relationship. I'm so grateful for the fact that we were living so far away at the time and we couldn't do anything, because we just had the most beautiful time having conversation. It was 13 months before I actually met this lady in person. And we used to call each other 2 and 3 times a day. We used to have these beautiful conversations. If we don't have fantastic communication between our partners, there is nothing. Because by the time we hit 60, 70, 80, nothing works anymore. So if you can't have a good conversation, well, what is there? So if you're being with somebody for their looks or their sex appeal or whatever it is, that's going to change when it's 50, 60. So that's what happens, Con. If we just develop a friendship, get to know the person, really understand that person, have some disagreements, fighting fair, understand how to have a disagreement, because it's only their point of view. When you're self-aware enough, you can have these difficult conversations without it blowing up into a massive blue and slamming doors and throwing knives and forks and things.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And punches.
Or worse.
Oh yes.
Or worse.
Yes.
I also, again, bit of research and looked at what the 5 main causes or reasons of divorce were. And I'll just read them out, and I have a question/comment afterwards. So the 5 main reasons, according to statistics, were fear or lack of commitment, infidelity, conflict, which I think probably encompasses both anyway, marrying too young, which probably goes back to what you said about not knowing the person, money, substance abuse, and domestic violence.
Yeah.
Now, I look at those, and they're more symptoms to me rather than the underlying issue.
They are.
Is that a fair call?
Absolutely. They all fall under self-awareness and love and respect for self. If you love yourself, if you accept and respect yourself unconditionally, warts and all, you don't have any reason to argue. It's actually impossible to talk to somebody in a disgusting way, in an abusive way, if you love yourself unconditionally. So if you love and respect yourself enough, you to answer this really clearly, we can only give and receive love and respect to the degree that we love and respect ourselves. That's it. So if you have a very low self-esteem or low opinion of yourself and you don't look after yourself, how can you look after another person? This is what's happening in disposable. That's why I'm talking about disposable relationships. We have to understand and know ourselves first before we can have a really beautiful, constructive relationship. When your self-talk is positive, you've got a high respect for yourself. You have no choice but to respect the other person. Doesn't matter who it is I see in the street, I have a deep respect for those people, whether they do some silly things or not. It's entirely up to them, but they're doing the best they can based on their life experience. Based on their life experience. I teach people how to look within and how to communicate, how to respect themselves, because if they can't respect themselves, they can't respect another relationship.
Wow. Very, very powerful, Russ. That
It is.
Yeah, love and respect. It's. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. John DeMartini.
Yeah.
I was listening to an audio book of his, and he talks about owning every part of who we are.
Absolutely.
Good or bad, like every trait.
Yeah.
And he jokingly, I can't remember how many traits there were in the dictionary, but he said he was so anal, he went through and identified every single trait and in himself, because he said once you own and accept who you are to every degree, people can't push your buttons.
No.
And
Totally.
so the risk or the escalation of conflict is fundamentally not possible because
that's right.
You own who you are and every single trait, and that in itself is really, really confronting.
Absolutely.
That in itself is really, really confronting.
Mm.
Russ, yeah, wow. Tell me, like, I'm curious, again, going in the information you sent, what makes you a transformative force like no other? What is different about Russ in terms of not only his approach to helping people with their relationships, but in terms of how he does it?
I walk the talk. I've been there. I've been there. I've
Boom.
experienced it. Yeah. And I live this. I live my life every day by what I teach, so I know it works. Um, I have a healthy respect and acceptance for myself. My wife does too. That's why we're together. It's understanding ourselves. I have a deep understanding of myself. I teach people how to do that. And I've had, I've actually told couples to split up because I'm going, nah, it's not going to work. Split up. And the funny thing is, they come back to me 6 months later and for some more sessions, and they get back together again on a much better level because the affection is there, the connection is there, but they just not knowing, they just don't know enough about themselves yet. And I work with them later on down the track, and they get back together and at a much higher respect because I do this for the kids, Con. I do this for the kids, and I I don't want I've seen enough as a social worker. I'm doing this for the kids. That's what this I help couples rediscover happiness so they can be amazing role models for the kids. Because if I'm going to change the 63% divorce rate and lower that, it's got to start with the kids. It's got to start with displaying constructive relationships. It's okay to have a disagreement or a negotiation. The relationships are not controlled, they're negotiated.
Mm.
It's a 50-50 world out there. So it's maintaining your power, not giving your power away, not taking more power, not taking control. Two people negotiate the relationship. And if they do that in front of the children, the children are learning how to negotiate a relationship in a respectful way. And I say couples, if you're going to have these sorts of arguments in front of kids, I said, do it in the bedroom. I said, don't do it in front of the kids in the bedroom. If you're going to sit down, create a safe space, this is what I teach people. Create a safe space. Have the ground rules. No name calling, no swearing, no pointing, no blaming. Use the I statements and no leaving. Just sit there, and that is okay for the children to see because there is no emotional trauma attached to it. Because, oh, this is what mum and dad do. So what you're doing, you're teaching the children that this is okay to negotiate the relationship. But if one of the partners is abusing the other partner, pointing and shouting, they're teaching their boys that they're teaching them that this is okay in a relationship and I can control my partner, or it's okay to take this rubbish. It's okay to take this abuse, and it's not okay. So we've got to be because kids will only do what they see.
Of course.
They won't do what you say, they'll do what you do. So we have to teach the kids. So now I've just lost a question. Sorry.
No,
Started off on that.
not at all.
I'm passionate about this.
Really? No, you've pretty well answered it. Look, the question was what makes you a transformative force like no other, and I mean you've certainly answered it. But if you've got more to add, please.
I just want to teach people how to improve the quality of their life, the respect for themselves, so they can then have respect in a relationship. And I want the kids to see that. And people say to me, I don't believe how much I've changed in a couple of sessions. Some people are back together in 2 sessions.
You mentioned you've had couples come to you and you've gone, guys, you need to divorce or you need to separate. Like this is just gone past its use by date.
Yeah.
I use the gym and the weight analogy here. You don't go to a gym and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger after 2 sessions.
No.
It's taken many, many months and many years.
Yes.
You know, people didn't get fat overnight. They got fat because of their eating habits and emotional and goodness knows whatever else.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that marriages and or relationships, it's kind of the same?
Absolutely.
They didn't go to crap overnight.
No.
It's a, you know, a little bit today, a little bit today, a little bit today, a little bit today, a little bit today. So my question here is, you've got a couple that obviously over time the relationship's gone south,
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
How, for them to resolve their relationship, is it fair to say that there has to be a point for both of them, not just the one, but for both of them to go, okay, enough's enough, this needs to be resolved, and then seek your help?
Yeah.
Because if one person, this is from my narrow perspective, if I'm having an issue with my relationship and I go, hey, I need to go and see Russ, but one partner is looking to, I won't say improve themselves, raise their level of self-awareness, and the other is not, it's kind of like rowing in opposite directions.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's commitment.
Yeah. And one of the main reasons people divorce is lack of commitment, and in lack of commitment to the whole thing. So my question here is, as the court, the magistrate would say, is there a question in there somewhere, Mr. Koutsikas? Is for me, it didn't happen overnight. When you've got a couple that have come to you and it's been a while, and there's some really, really, really deep-seated challenges. Where's the starting point? Where's the starting point to help these people?
They've got to accept the problem. They've got to accept that they've got a problem, and they've got to take responsibility for their own lives and their own part in this. Are they committed or not? If they're not committed, bye-bye, not interested. If you want to improve the quality of your life, you have to do some work. If you can't improve the quality of your relationship until you improve your love and respect for self and acceptance for self. If they're ready to go and do some work on that, that's fine. But Con, I'll put it another way. If you bought a brand new car and you didn't service it, what's going to happen to the car? It's not going to last. People get into a relationship and they go through all the courting, they do all these lovely things, they have some fun, they do all these things, and they have such a great time. They get married and they stop all that and wonder why their relationship's all in the pieces. And I say, when's the last time you went on a date night? When's the last time you left your phones at home, you went to a restaurant or went out to a do together, and you had just a nice time together, communicating, connecting with each other, talking about, yes.
And I don't swear on my program, but this effing device, you know, people tell me that, oh no, I can control it. Bullshit.
No.
It's controlling you. And I just want to take a point that you made about, you know, dating. When was the last time you went out on a date?
Yes.
And, you know, people go, oh, we can't afford to go out to dinner. Well, you don't have to go to a 5-star Michelin restaurant.
They can picnic down the park.
Yeah. All right. But when was the last time? I've been out and I've seen, and this is a nice restaurant, not, you know, we're not talking 5-star here, but a nice restaurant with my partner.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple come in and they're no more than late 20s, early 30s. So it's not like they've been together for 50 years.
Yeah.
And both of them have got this, and they're eating and looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And I could count the number of words on one hand, and they wonder why they've got relationship issues.
Yeah, totally. We are what we consume, Con. I teach people, we are what we consume through all our senses. And if we consume rubbish, garbage in, garbage out, how can you have something decent in your life and relationship if you're consuming junk food, you're not looking after yourself, you're spending stupid amount of times in war games or on the phone? It's once upon a time, Con, it wasn't that long ago, our phones were screwed to the wall. We couldn't take them to
Yeah.
this, you know? And what a wonderful life that would have been if we could have it now, you know? So I actually leave my phone at home often. If I go to the hot springs, if I go to a restaurant, if I go out, I leave my phone at home. I'll leave it in the car or at home. I don't.
We have a rule. If we go out, it's not on the table.
Yep, no.
It's not on the table.
Yeah.
End of story. And it's funny. I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV, but there's a mindless program called First Dates, and there was a version where this young lady came to the date. You know, it's blind dates, and she's got her phone face up on the table, and this bloke's talking to her, and she's looking at the phone. And I said to my partner, I said, if you had have done that on our first date, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. I asked my wife 2 questions. What's your love language? This is the first question I asked her. And the second one was, how much time do you spend on your phone?
Okay.
Because I'm not, look, I don't have I don't watch, I haven't owned a TV for 26 years. I'm not interested. Don't want it. I don't get time. I'm too busy enjoying my life.
Mm.
I love my life, and I'm still looking for more hours in the day. And I can't. I don't sit in front of a senseless screen or my phone. I don't spend it on my phone either.
Russ, we could go on for hours. We really could, but we won't. Look, mate. One of the things that I do is, and before I get to it, I'll just wind back one step here. What's your advice, or what do you think needs to be done to minimize the divorce rate in newlyweds? In other words, you've got a couple married for the first time, irrespective of what age they are. What do you think needs to be done to minimize the likelihood that their relationship will end in divorce?
Develop a relationship. You got to develop that friendship first. You've got to actually understand what the person's goals are, or negotiate talk about every area of the relationship. Really get to know the person, but really you're going to have to get to know yourself as well. You're going to have to. I do pre-marriage counselling for people. I'll do anything. Because you really have to understand where both people, what's the expectations, what's the values, what values do you have, what do you see the relationship to be like in 5, 10, 20 years time? What's your financial circumstances? What are we going to do? I have a lot of couples coming to me. It's not right or wrong. It just is. But they have separate bank accounts. I've got one friend that doesn't even know. It's had her own finances all her life, but they've been in a relationship for 40 years. I'm going, wow, because if you've got a committed relationship, it's a force of 2. But it's a force of 1, like 2 people joined together as a partnership, a team. You're working in partnership with common goals, with common values, and common strategies you put in place to keep the relationship alive. If you're going out on a date 2 or 3 times a month, 3 or 4 times a month, keep that up. Keep on working with each, understanding each other, because if you don't communicate, you make sure you've got good communication skills. But I think developing the friendship and getting to know yourself first, getting to know the other person before you stand at the aisle, really develop that friendship. You've got to do that.
Do you think, I know in some religions, and I'm not going to sprout which ones because I'm not 100% sure, but I know there are some where the couple has to have several meetings with the priest or pastor or whatever. I've never been involved in one of those. I would imagine that would be spiritual and more religious orientated than perhaps some other aspects of life. Do you think it should, and do you think it would ever be possible for pre-marriage counselling from an external person such as yourself to be compulsory prior to marriage?
That's an interesting question. I think it would help. However, I went through 4 or 6 sessions with a priest before my first marriage, but that didn't stop. It doesn't change the person within. You know, if they've got healthy values, if they don't have issues from their past, or if they don't have anger issues, if they don't have medical issues, well, then that's fine. But if they've had trauma in their relationship, it's going to raise its head every time it's triggered, and you don't know when it's going to be triggered. So I think it might help to educate people and make people more aware that there's a finances, how we're going to sort challenges out, what's the money, what's the challenges, what you plan to do with the house, where do you want to live, how many children do you want, all those basic things. But learning how to communicate and actually understanding yourself, I don't think it's not going to work. If you put anybody through a 6-week course and they're doing it because you have to do it, they just sit there and go, yep,
Yeah.
okay. But it doesn't change anything, Con. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah, fair point.
If you want to change, it will. If you want to change, if you want to work together, you will. It's just a choice. All of this is just a choice.
Yeah, choice is definitely a common theme in many of my interviews of late, in a whole heap of different areas. Russ, as I said, I could talk to you for hours, but I know you've got other things to do, mate. What I do when I wind up is I ask my guests for their 3 top tips. Now, you've probably mentioned them already, but give us Russ's 3 top tips in maintaining a really happy and healthy marriage or relationship.
Connecting with, understanding yourself, owning your stuff, knowing that what the other person says has absolutely no power. It's just their point of view. They don't hurt you. Your own thought processes hurt you. It's just their point of view. And you have a differing point of view. If it doesn't suit, if it doesn't fit with you, you have your point of view. That's when you both talk about it, negotiate. So open communication, understanding that it's only the other person's point of view. The other thing is, every time you've got a reaction, it comes from your past. Nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with the other person. It comes from your past, because there's events happened in your past, most likely your childhood, and your unconscious mind is related this event into the past, and it takes out this file and goes, this is how I reacted, and this is how I behaved. This is my emotions, and this is how I reacted. So understanding that when you're getting peeved off, it's nothing to do with the other person. It's got everything to do with you. When you point the finger, there's three fingers pointing back at you. That doesn't work. And I think the other thing is, if you don't take proper care for yourself, how on earth are you going to have a beautiful, respectful relationship if you can't respect yourself? If you can't respect yourself, how can you have a respectful relationship?
That one is really, really resonating. That one, you can only love and respect other people to the extent that you love and respect yourself.
Absolutely.
That's I've written that down, Russ. I've written that down.
Yeah. And I want to say to all those guys out there that it's not a sign of weakness if you go and get some support for this crap that keeps on coming up. It's actually smart. It actually puts you above the pack. It's a very wise and mature thing to do to get some help. Because after going through what I've been through, if I had known this 20, 30 years beforehand, I would have, mate, I wouldn't have had a lot of the stuff go on. But then again, I'm glad because now I can actually be there. Everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
It happens. So it's smart to get help. It's smart to talk to somebody and work through your anger, work through your anxiety, wherever it is.
Whatever.
I work with the unconscious mind so I can actually help an enormous amount with that. But I've got a 6-week program I'll put 3 people through, and it covers all what we talked about today. And if they want to get in contact with me, they just go russellvoss.com.au or happycouple.com.au, and that will put you on the website.
Yeah, I was going to say what we'll do for the listeners and viewers is we'll put all of Russell's details in the show notes, and that way, if you'd like to reach out to Russell to learn more about his program and the amazing work that he does, you can reach out to him. Russell, it's been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate your time and sharing not only your experiences but your deep, vast knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Con. I am the conversationalist. My guest today has been relationship counsellor and personal development speaker Russell Voss. My name is Con. I am the conversationalist. And until next time, bye for now.